Have you ever wondered why the burgers at fast food restaurants never look like the way they do on TV commercials? Today I want to help you understand one possible reason why: the misalignment of generic subcultures within organizations. The misalignment of organizational subcultures is often the root of most dysfunction in organizations and businesses. Today I want to help you better understand what we mean by organizational culture. Then we're going to begin by examining the 3 generic subcultures according to MIT professor and management guru Edgar Skene. And then I'll give you some real life examples of what exactly happens when these subcultures are misaligned. Let's begin by getting clear on exactly what we mean when we talk about organizational culture. So organizational culture is widely talked about and often very much misunderstood and ambiguous to most people. And that's according to Michael Watkins, a writer at the Harvard Business Review. Watkins prefers a very simple, clear definition of organizational culture. It is the way organizations conduct themselves every day, basically the way that they do business. And we can study organizational culture by looking at 3 specific aspects of an organization. We can look at artifacts within that organization, we can look at values, and we can look at shared basic assumptions held by people within the organization. Artifacts could be anything from an email to the way a company conducts their holiday parties, to the way that they evaluate their employees. Values are often explicitly stated on a company's website, and they indicate the ideas that a company holds dear. Sometimes, though, values can be implicit. For example, one company might say that they value their employees, but their policies, like working really long shifts or working over holidays, might contradict that. Finally, assumptions are the belief systems that drive individual day-to-day behavior within an organization. Basically, this idea that the customer is always right would be one example. So again, artifacts, values, and assumptions. So now that we have a better understanding of organizational culture, it's important to note that there are often many distinct cultures within an organization. There's not just one singular culture. So let's explore the 3 most common subcultures within an organization. According to Skene, every organization has basically 3 distinct generic subcultures: executives, engineers, and operators. Executives, engineers, and operators. Executives are those who control the money and often the big picture direction of an organization. The engineers are those who create the systems, design the processes or services or products that an organization is delivering to its customers. And then the operators are those at the ground level who are often giving customers the products or serving or implementing the services. So let's take McDonald's, for example. McDonald's has C-suite executives who are controlling the big picture financial decisions, who are deciding whether or not they should open new restaurants or change their menu to more healthier options. Then at the engineer level, there are folks like test kitchen chefs or the operations managers who have to design new recipes or open new restaurants. And then at the operator level, there are the cooks and the folks who work at the local McDonald's restaurants preparing and serving food to customers. So now that you better understand these organizational subcultures, let's talk about what we mean by subculture misalignment. According to Skene, when subcultures are misaligned, when these executives, engineers, and operators are not operating in all the same way, dysfunction results, and that can cause organizations to fail. So, according to Skene, subculture misalignment really exists when these generic subcultures are not understanding each other or are potentially working against one another. They're sort of working in opposition within an organization. So we might take the McDonald's example and extend it a bit. So let's say the engineers at McDonald's, the test kitchen folks, design a new burger recipe that they think is going to be amazing and customers are going to love. Well, when the local operators get it, the local chefs, they might look at the recipe and say, you know what, this doesn't work, we're not going to follow this, we're going to take shortcuts, and they might start preparing that burger differently than the engineers had intended it. And this would be an example of subculture misalignment and potentially one of the reasons why the burgers never look like they do on TV commercials. But more importantly, subculture misalignment can also have some really serious ramifications for an organization. When burgers don't look like they do on TV commercials, customers buy fewer of them, leads to customer dissatisfaction, and even lower profits. According to Skeen, subculture misalignment can also prevent organizations from actually learning and improving. For example, when the engineers fail to listen and communicate with those at the operator level, the folks that are executing the work, this can cause them to miss valuable opportunities to improve systems or products or processes. Skeen, for example, talks about an automaker in which the operators, the folks assembling the cars, went to upper management and engineers and said, hey, there are some issues with the way we're having to assemble this car. It is not functioning properly. Well, upper management dismissed them because they were worried more about the bottom line, and this eventually led to really low quality vehicles that undersold and caused the company to have to downsize. So really detrimental effects when these three subcultures are misaligned. Dysfunction occurs. And bad subcultures exist all over the place, not just in automakers or McDonald's. Recently, for example, I was talking with an old colleague. He and I had worked together at this public charter school network in Philadelphia, and we had both lamented that those were some of the darkest days in our lives. And we started to talk about why. Why was it? And we eventually landed on this idea that the teachers at the ground level, which he and I were really not aligned with the upper management, the principals, the academic coaches, the folks designing the curriculum, and those folks were really not communicating very well with the chief executive officers and the academic chiefs. And that misalignment really led to bad outcomes at the classroom level for students and also for teachers. So there you have it. Subculture misalignment can be often the root cause of much dysfunction at organizations.